If you've ever lived in an older house, you know just how rare a good closet can be. Having just moved from a very new home to one designed nearly a century ago, I'm having to reorganize in a whole new way. So just how did they store their clothing with only tiny closets, or none at all? I'm going to dig through some old articles, catalogs, and floor plans to see what secrets of storage we might have forgotten and hopefully organize my mess a little bit better because of it. The first question I know we all ask, did they only have a couple of outfits instead? Well, not really. I did an entire video on how much clothing people used to own, so start there if you don't believe me when I say that they had a lot more than you would think. It was just an extensive amount of layers for each outfit, so that meant they needed to store a lot of undergarments, but maybe not as many suits and gowns. They still had quite a few, however, and more importantly, they were much more aware of seasonal changes without our modern heating and cooling options. That alone bulks out the range of what an average person would need to store. Now, I admit I am asking a bit too much of my house when it comes to clothing. Years of making my own suits and shoes means I have an excessive quantity of things that don't get regular wear. There is a substantial hall closet in the entry and two more upstairs, one for linens and the other for hanging clothing. The bedrooms, however, weren't as well planned. The main bedroom has an overly deep closet with more dead space than used. The guest space isn't deep enough for a regular hanger, and the sewing room has a massive walk-in that extends over the stairs, maybe more of a crawl-in, though I admit I don't trust putting heavy things up there. I feel like the square footage adds up to a lot, even though I'm failing to make use of it. But it turns out my closets may not have been ideal even by historic standards. So let's see what their suggestions are. Starting with the hall closet. Though it seems like closets just weren't that important until recently, even 19th century home builders understood their necessity. An article from 1873 in the American Builder and Journal of Art bemoans that a modern house destitute of a closet room would be reckoned an absurdity. Closets must be arranged for in every room from basement to attic, except the hall, where somehow we persuade ourselves one is not needed, and the hat stand is supposed to answer every purpose. It goes on to describe the issues of a hat stand holding mounds of damp, stinking coats, an eyesore in the most obvious place of the house, and very non-functional. Importantly, it not only tells us that hall closets were a rarity, much to the complaint of the author, but that other closets were considered mandatory. Not that they were always done well, which isn't shocking given the square footage of most houses was far smaller on average than today. Something I had to consider when I was deciding what furniture to bring to this house. My oversized king bed didn't make it for obvious reasons, so I've been temporarily sleeping on my daybed. And that's why I am so happy that the sponsor for this video is Birch. Because there's nothing more obvious after months of staying in a rental than how important a good mattress and a good sleep is. That's why I'm so happy to introduce Birch. They are currently running their Memorial Day sale and have given me an exclusive discount for my followers. Just use code BirchPartner27 to get 27% off your mattress. Birch Living makes mattresses that are crafted with responsibly sourced materials, such as organic cotton, organic wool, and 100% natural latex. They're also free from polyurethane foams, which can cause harmful off-gassing, and are constructed without fiberglass, which can be detrimental to your health. Not to mention, just plain itchy. Unlike synthetic mattresses, the wool makes them hypoallergenic and mildew resistant, which I am definitely thankful for with my long list of allergies. I have the Birch Luxe Natural Mattress, which is a premium upgrade to their original, well-loved Birch Natural mattress. I've been sleeping on it for about 3 years now, and it has made such a difference. Thankfully, I had one for my guest room too, since that's where I've been sleeping while moving in. I can honestly say that with my Birch mattress, I sleep through the night and wake up without sore muscles and joint pain. And while I am renovating an old house, I am really putting that to the test. Seriously, the other day I was pulling up carpet from the stairs and I could still get out of bed the next morning. And you don't have to worry about trying it out. With your Birch mattress, you get a 100-night sleep trial. That means you'll get more than 3 months to make sure that you love it. as much as Bailey does. The best part about all of this is that Birch delivers your mattress right to your door for free within the US. They also offer in-home setup and removal to make your buying experience as convenient as possible. Each Birch mattress comes with 2 of their Eco-Rest pillows made from recycled materials. They're breathable and better for the environment. I love my Birch Living mattress, and I think you would too. Check out birchliving.com/Nicole Rudolph and use my exclusive code BirchPartner27 to get 27% off, plus 2 free pillows with your mattress purchase during their Memorial Day sale. Thanks again to Birch for keeping me and my furniture functional. Not a novel idea, because whether their house was full of closet space or not, people often relied on a range of furniture to store clothing. It makes sense when you realize what exactly a wardrobe was made up of and how they cared for it. There's a big hint as to why closets are not the main choice of daily clothing storage in another builder's journal from 1881. They admit there is nothing so handy in a house as an abundance of large, roomy closets, but that the misuse of them causes a very large problem. Putting dirty clothing in a small enclosed space, reminder this is pre-forced air, leads to odors that spread into adjoining rooms. Ventilating or airing out the space can help, but most articles of this era simply recommended leaving the daily clothing out at night, stored on a peg or hook. I want to note here that the stories of coats being left on chair backs at night are also prolific, so chair-based storage is an age-old tradition. In comparison, used undergarments go into a wash basket in whatever well-aired room you have, like a bathroom or even an extra bedroom. These considerations are far less of a problem for us today, when so many things are worn for a day and then thrown into the wash. Hanging up clothing with odors from the day, like smoke from fireplaces, damp, moldy rooms, or dust from unpaved streets, just isn't as common now. But the concern is valid, which you know if you've ever tossed something you wore around a campfire into a closet space and returned the next day to find nearly everything in there absorbed the odor. But this is just the problem of clothing that is being reworn. The main bulk of clean garments, underwear, shirts, accessories, are best stored on shelves and in drawers. And the easiest way to get exactly what you need is by way of furniture. The standard bedroom set in the late 19th century seems to be a bed frame, washstand, and dresser. This is pre-running water and bathrooms built into every house, of course, so a washstand for a basin and basic toiletries is pretty necessary. If more space is needed, the chiffonier is the next recommended piece. It's just a taller, often slightly narrower set of drawers compared to the dresser. You don't want too many large drawers, since with seasonal changes they're bound to warp and stick a little. Fine with smaller drawers, but big heavy ones are too much effort. The next step up in storage furniture from there is the wardrobe. Hanging space for suits and coats, maybe a few dresses. It can also be combined with other furniture to be a chifforobe or a wardrobe dresser. Nightstands, side chests, vanities, and dressing tables are also optional, but usually offer less storage. One of the most essential pieces that I think is often forgotten in today's bedroom is the chest. This is where all of the textiles, which tend to be nibbled on by moths and other pests, go when not in season. Ideally, there would be at least one cedar-lined closet to ward them off, but if closets were in short supply, the chest was a very practical option. Honestly, another reason hanging everything up in a closet was a bad idea. As wool suits sat for half the year in houses with open windows, there'd be some autumn surprises. A clothing vault was even advertised in the 1920s as a way to fully lock away your winter coats. Or if you couldn't build that entire thing into a wall, the attic space could be used to build a freestanding cedar closet, which would be great for pests, not so much for temperatures or humidity wrecking things long term. A short-term solution at least, I suppose. With all of those problems in mind, many house designs only included small closets in each bedroom, just deep enough for a row of hangers and maybe one in the upstairs hall. A 1919 article notes that closets are often an afterthought by the builder, but are a major selling point. They point out the common problems, ironically describing both of my closet issues, one too shallow for hangers and the other deeper than needed but not enough to make use of that space. Whether the floor plan was tiny or large, closets were more of a filler of odd spaces than the plan. At best, eating into the floor space of 2 bedrooms sharing a wall. Instead of relying on a miracle floor plan, suggestions like this booklet existed to help new homeowners get an idea of how much furniture they would need In the bedrooms of this small 1903 home, they recommended 2 chiffoniers with 5 drawers, a bureau of 4 drawers, and 2 washstands to be split among the 3 bedrooms. The floor plan does show the standard set of smaller closets as well. In the largest of homes, they recommend a bureau and a chiffonier in every bedroom that is regularly occupied, including the servants. Note that there are almost no closets on the floor plan, though the largest bedrooms seem to have a boudoir connecting them, likely where they stored all of their clothing and treated it like a dressing room. Even if money doesn't buy you closets, it can certainly buy the furniture to make up for it. To be a bit more practical with the square footage, there seems to be a never-ending range of suggestions and inventions to save space and wrinkles. Go back far enough and even hangers and rods were a novel idea. They didn't really catch on in the wishbone format that we're used to in terms of everyday storage until the 20th century. I stared at this patent invention from 1886 for quite a while before I realized it really is just a normal hanger by modern standards. Not that all the creativity stopped there. In 1913, the BATS system was advertised as a wardrobe built into the wall rather than a closet. It uses telescopic extension rods that allow the clothing to lay flat against the wall. Definitely something that would work well in my guest bedroom closet if the door wasn't so narrow. Wardrobe doors on closets came up repeatedly in other articles as well. This would then allow for drawers under the hanging clothes, keeping dust from drifting into the closet floor, and easily accessed shelves above. Utilizing the space with very specific sized drawers and shelves also comes up regularly. In any closet there is a ton of unused area, like below hanging clothes. Drawers, shelves, places for shoes, even a little side nook for tall skinny things like brooms. In some versions, even the doors are made useful. A long article from 1957 in Better Housekeeping shows various ways to take an average small closet and open it up. The doors hold small things like jewelry, purses, scarves, belts, a mirror, or even a few hanging items. Inside the space is split to maximize hanging room, then every inch inch is filled with shelves and drawers. They even show a version of this fit out for a sewing room. More creative solutions can also be found throughout as well, like this 1929 clothing carrier that swings out and into a deep closet so that you don't have to leave space for a person to fit in there. If you need something simpler, how about this hook that can hold multiple garments? Or maybe one that slides out from under a shelf so you don't have to dig back into the closet. Various versions of that device claim to save enough square footage in designs that you could save money on building your house. Testing things out in person was also an option with this KV door display. KV stood for convenience. Meant to stand in stores, the single door showcased a multitude of special fixtures. This 1956 catalog for builders has everything from racks for shoes, purses, hats, and ties to creative ways to hold multiple pairs of trousers or disappearing racks that slide back under the shelf. Honestly, by the 1950s, most of the guides look incredibly similar to what can be found from any custom closet producer today. A few priorities have changed. We're less likely to need a section full of hat stands, but for roughly 10 feet of space, this design would be very functional. My closets are relatively devoid of creative gadgets. I did find a number of these hooks in the walls, a style which goes back to at least the 1880s. The doors show evidence of more than a few attachments over the years, but very few survive. In the sewing room closet, there was a little extendable hook fixture that was likely used for belts or scarves. For the most part, it's just a few pieces of wood to make up a shelf and 1 or 2 rods across. How much has been removed over the years is anyone's guess. I don't think a few hooks will solve my issues, nor can I change my doors just yet, though. Essentially, this is all great for those who are building new or have the ability to do some construction. For those that could not, however, furniture wasn't the only option. The Indiana Farmer's Guide, presumably with an audience that's living in older, smaller homes, published in 1920 instructions to build your own closet if the wardrobe furniture isn't enough. It's sort of like an IKEA closet, but with a curtain in front. Hangers to be made out of barrel hoops and covered in cloth. For skirts, they say to hang safety pins from tapes on hangers. Add a few small shelves and maybe one long one across the baseboard for shoes, and that will make do. Even simpler was this 1918 idea of taking 2 boards, nailing them to the wall at top and bottom, and then using a curtain to run around them. A few hooks inside, and it's a cheap and effectively temporary closet space. For my closets, I'm taking a little bit of every recommendation. Since I don't need all of the hanging space in the sewing room, I'm fitting it out with shelves. I like to add a second shelf over the extension so I can load up all of my leather without stressing about the weight or stacking so many things on one shelf that I have to move every time. I'm currently making do on hanging things temporarily by using all 3 closets upstairs, but that's far from ideal. Made obvious by the half-unpacked mess I'm apparently showing to the internet now. Folding things are also split between my large dresser and an antique one in the guest room. Shoes are just kind of everywhere. It's not really a good long-term solution. However, my actual long-term solution is going to require a fair bit of construction and won't be until next year. In the meantime, not wanting to spend money on things I'd only use for a short time, I ordered a few valet hooks to make use of the dead space behind the hanging clothes in my main closet, a couple of smaller hooks for the inside of the door, and an accessory storage hook device. These can all transfer to a permanent built-in wardrobe later. I think the little ledge will be next to go to make space for my hampers. Above, with tons of room and poor access, it's all of the boxes of hats and clothing that I don't often use. I've actually had all of these boxes in use for a number of years already, so these aren't a new purchase for this project. I'm just trying to figure out where to fit them best. But even though I'm far less concerned about pests than they were, my off-season clothing is going to go into bags with some cedar bits and is going to be hidden under the bed. Additionally, this set of shelves was left behind in the main bedroom and far from great quality, but for now, though, it is the right size for all of my shoes. I'm just going to take a hint from those articles and make curtains to cover the front. Decorative and dust-free. A great way to temporarily bring some color into the room before I'm able to actually paint it. And who knows, maybe at some point I'll be able to find some gorgeous Art Deco storage like a cedar chest or a chifforobe to fill it all out. Something tall, skinny, and full of drawers sounds very useful for all of my accessories. All of this is great for temporary, but what if someone had both the money and the ability to design a home around their wardrobe needs? Or at least the money and time to do some construction. For the ideal clothing closet, we start in 1904. Lighted by high windows in the day and electricity at night, shelves for lingerie behind glass doors, complete with fancy ribbons and gathered fabric, a bar for hanging tea gowns and wrappers, small shelves for bonnets, another section for shoes, and a large space for hanging clothes. In fact, large enough that a sachet of silk with a slight perfume can sit between every garment to keep them from touching and impart just a slight perfume odor. Again, making sure that things air out. Of course, this is a dream closet and not practical for most households. While I won't be able to build out an entire room for my dream closets, I can at least do built-ins instead of regular closets in the 2 main bedrooms. First, completely lose the useless guest room closet. I'd rather have a flat wall in both rooms. To replace it, a built-in wardrobe, not unlike the closets the 1950s guide suggested, will run along a different wall. Probably a mix of IKEA and some custom efforts on my part. I am definitely considering that ideal closet of glass doors with fabric gathered behind. A lot of hanging space, quite a few shelves, and maybe a few drawers. I'm still debating whether it's going to be a better option to have drawers or boxes for the small things. It's also likely that I'll do a similar thing in the main bedroom along the what will be now flat wall. If it goes well, the space of the hall closet and main bedroom might be partially absorbed into the bathroom to provide storage and a better layout for all of the rooms. But that's at least a year out, and I'll have professional designers helping me with those plans. I don't mess with plumbing. In the meantime, this should be enough for me to have access to what I need. Lots of hooks, shelves, and a few curtains will make do with what I have for the moment. That and quite a bit of paint. I've already painted my linen closet a lovely peachy color, Navarone from Farrow and Ball. Interestingly enough, there were quite a few articles from the 1920s and 30s talking about how colorful closets were the new trend, so it only seemed appropriate. And frankly, all of the closets really needed to be repainted because I'm pretty sure the walls were last painted in the 1960s and the ceilings were last painted when the house was built. So I have a lot of painting to do, but for now I have one complete closet and a few others that will temporarily work.